Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Fiscal Physical Podcast. My name is Aaron Hoisington. I am joined, as always, by the brains behind this operation, Mr. Ryan Nelson. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
You know, I cannot complain. It's another beautiful day here in Reno. We are recording some podcasting, and we're doing our thing, man. So you ready to jump into this bad boy?
Let's do it.
All right, sounds good. So today we are going to be covering a topic that is, I'd say, relatively important here when it comes to finances, and we're going to be talking about how to broach the financial topic with your partner. So want to preface this as well. We're not here to give financial advice, and honestly, we're probably less qualified to give relationship advice than anything there, too. So take everything we say with a grain of salt. It's going to depend on your situation, but we do want to cover because most people do have a significant other at one point or will in their life at some point, and the topic of finances will come up. It will be a part of your life. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Ryan, to just talk about tips or tricks you've seen that work well, maybe don't work well, as far as covering this topic with your partner.
Cool. Let's do it. So clearly, what's that song? It's like money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you a boat.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, money, again, while money can't buy happiness, it definitely is involved in many, many pieces of our life, right? From where we live and how we spend our time and how we prioritize our goals. And so it is an important variable in all of our lives. And, when you have two people in a household and sometimes they have different views on money, it can create, some tension or conflict. And so one thing I find interesting is one of the leading causes of divorce are around financial reasons and financial conflicts. And so, if nothing else, I mean, that's a good reason right there. Yeah. I mean, it's a good indicator that when two people aren't on the same page, it leads to non-ideal situations, and getting on the same page can certainly be valuable. So I think, really getting on the same page and doing it earlier than later is probably better. So as far as like what works, so I think that it sounds silly, and again, like I'm in no position to give like relationship advice, but like having a conversation as opposed to a confrontation is useful. So really like approaching it from the standpoint of like discovery and learning and having a conversation about finances. And again, if you approach it from that position of wanting to learn about the other person, wanting to learn about their goals, wanting to learn about how they view money, you're probably going to be in a much better spot. So it's super, super, super rare, but sometimes I'll have people in my office where they will, they'll each think each other is right, or they'll each, so maybe it's a husband and wife. The husband thinks he's right. The wife thinks she's right. And they'll want to like talk to me and almost hope that I side with them to prove to their spouse that they are the right one. Right. And like, the reality is like, as most things in life, there usually isn't like a cut and dry right answer. There's different pros, different cons, and there's different there's like a spectrum, and you could lie at a different place in the spectrum. Right. So if we're talking about risk, it's not that more risk or less risk is good or bad. It's just that there's different pros and cons to less risk. There's different pros and cons to more risk, and everybody will lie on that spectrum somewhere else. And so coming at it from a point of like discovery of trying to figure out like where your partner is, where you're at, and how you could like mutually come to a beneficial solution for both of you is kind of the approach you'd want to take, as opposed to a confrontational approach, I think.
Yeah, I think that really rings true. You can, I think there's the saying, like, you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar or something like that. And I don't know if that really applies. I just like saying that saying, but like, I think it is important to have, like, if you have a rational, like, calm conversation with your partner, specifically around finances, it's a lot better than I've been in this situation where I've come across maybe more accusatory to people. Be like, well, why would you do that? Like, what's your goal? What are you doing? Like, kind of thing. Versus like, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Like, how do you view money? How do you view your finances? How does that match up with mine? What can we kind of do to marry the two up together? So I think that piece of conversation, not a confrontation, can honestly be applied to a lot of topics in a relationship for sure. Absolutely.
Another thing would be just to be honest. So, it's not uncommon maybe for, again, so everybody is a little bit different, and oftentimes you'll have one person in a relationship maybe be a saver and one person be a spender. And, it's possible sometimes the spender has racked up some credit card debt or something like that. And naturally, maybe there's like feelings of like guilt or shame associated with that. And so sometimes it's hard for them to be like transparent and honest. And, there's instances that, again, I've worked with professionally where one spouse will not have known of potentially 6 figures of debt.
Oh, wow.
And again, that's just clearly, it's really easy being an outside observer. It's really easy to see how that would lead to negative consequences from the relationship standpoint as far as money goes, right?
Yeah.
So obviously it's one of those things that sometimes is easier said than done. Like everybody can acknowledge that, that's probably not the best practice. Sometimes it is harder to be honest or admit some of those things, especially when they're associated with like shame or guilt. But that would be one of the things that would be important to do, is be honest about your numbers. And so just, again, being transparent, as well as like normalizing talking about some of that stuff. So if you never talk about anything finance related with your partner, it's not normal, right?
Sure.
The more you do it, the more natural it becomes, right? Like, I think most people, it would be hard for somebody to ask somebody else how much they make. It'd be an uncomfortable question, right?
Absolutely.
Throughout my work, I've asked that question hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, like literally. And so it's like not an awkward question for me. It's the same question. I've just normalized asking it.
Absolutely.
And because professionally I have to do it every single day, right? But so, it's a good example of like, the more you do something, the easier it becomes. And so, I think just normalizing those conversations with your significant other makes it easier. The first question might be, or the first time you have the conversation, it might be awkward. It might be weird. The second time, it might still be a little awkward. The 10th time, it's going to be probably not that awkward. The 100th time, it's just another conversation. It's a conversation you've had 100 times.
Yeah, and it's one of those topics, they talk about. I think there's like, hey, you don't talk about like politics, religion, finances, or sex. I think there's like there's 4 things. And for me, I'm like, why not? Like, why don't we? I like all 4 of those things sometimes. Like, and so I think specifically with the financial piece of it is normalizing it is because it's just that there's that stereotype behind like, oh, you don't ask somebody that question. It's like, well, why not? Like, I mean, if they're not comfortable answering that question, totally get it. They could just tell me that. I'll move right on.
Sure.
But I think it's important specifically with your partner, like you called out, like you both are probably tied up somewhere financially, and so being able to just normalize that is a huge piece of it for sure.
Yep. I think another thing that might make the conversations easier is like framing them around goals.
Sure.
So if you are, for instance, trying to save money, right? Sometimes it's easier to have the conversation around like, what are we trying to accomplish? So if we have this end goal of saving for a house, it's sometimes easier to broach the topic around saving around, okay, we're trying to save for this house. How much do we need? How much do we need to save per month? Where's this money going to come from? Right. And so kind of talking about it top down, starting at the goal and working down, as opposed to starting at the bottom and getting in, trying to look at the minutia of the daily budget and why are you spending X a day and why you keep going out to eat? I pack my own lunch, right? Like there's all these little things that it's like really easy to get caught up in. But again, if we stay like high level, focus on the goal, okay, we're trying to save for a house, like I think that does make the conversations, or at least has the potential to make the conversations be a little bit smoother there.
Yeah. And also you hit on a piece of like having that about goals versus like, hey, cool, I'm doing this, you're doing this. Like, but I know for myself, it's a lot easier for me to get on board with something if I'm kind of challenged with it. So it's like, hey, like our goal is to save, $20,000 by the end of the year for X purpose.
Right.
If I have a purpose behind that money, I know same with my wife too, I'm way more apt to be able to actually work towards that versus just saying, hey, let's save some money.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's pretend one spouse is more involved with the finances. So they say, hey, we need to save $1,000 a month, let's say. the other spouse, if they don't know why, or like they don't see the long-term vision,
Yep.
it's just like, what are we saving this for? I don't know. I'd prefer to get this, whatever, go golfing today. And so again, if you're aligned on those goals and it's like, oh, this money's to buy the house, or this money's for our long-term retirement. Oh, our retirement, we're planning on retiring at 55 and traveling. Oh, that sounds pretty cool. I could get behind saving $1,000 a month, right? So again, just making sure everybody's sort of on the same page from those goals.
Definitely.
Another thing would be to sort of define some like roles and responsibilities, since that sounds maybe a little bit like like corporate, right?
Like rigid.
Yeah. But the reality is it might be necessary to have like a successful finance. So like, who's responsible for paying the credit card bill? Mm-hmm. If neither of you is responsible, if you just assume the other one will, like, it's not good just to be like, oh, we're both responsible, because then it's like, well, yeah, maybe I won't do it this month. She'll take care of it this month, or she's like, I won't take care of it this month. He'll take care of it, right? Yeah. It's like best if one person is just responsible, and it's like, okay, I'll make sure that it's you know exactly who's going to get it done, right? So yeah, I think having some sort of roles, whether that's who's paying what bills or whatever, it can avoid a lot of like confusion.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think that's very, very true.
And then just to reiterate, it kind of, we touched on like when we talked about being honest and like normalizing these conversations, but it would just be like, part of normalizing this would be doing something on a regular basis. And so, there's a lot of couples who will have like monthly check-ins, mm-hmm. right? Where, they literally put it on the calendar. At this time, we're talking about finances, and it's like their finance meeting, right? And obviously, hopefully they can make it a little more fun than that, or turn it into like a date of sorts. But
sure, yeah.
The point is like, these are important topics. We prioritize and we put other things on the calendar, right? If we have a doctor's appointment, we're going to put on the calendar. We're going to make sure it happens. Having conversation about your finance are also important, and prioritizing it, getting it on the calendar, making sure that you're regularly checking in on it is probably a worthwhile habit as well.
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. I just revisiting it and making sure everybody's still on the same page. Those pulse checks, like you're saying, are important there for sure. So
yeah.
Now that we've talked about what does work, we've also hit on a couple of these other points, but I don't know if you want to touch on things that you've seen. Obviously, these aren't going to be set in stone, but like, what do you see kind of common pain points of things that don't work?
Yeah, I think definitely the more valuable side is focusing on what does work, right? So mm-hmm. let's run through what doesn't work much quicker.
Sure.
But yeah, so avoiding they can be awkward conversations, or just like they can be conversations that we don't want to have, or in that example where it's like, man, if I have 6 figures of credit card debt, I don't want to tell my partner about that. That's right. Natural, right? So it's really easy to avoid just having the conversation. And that obviously, just ignoring it doesn't make it go away. So avoiding it doesn't ever help. It just seems to get worse. Also, like criticizing. So, if we were partners and you go, buy a new set of golf clubs, and I'm mm-hmm. like, why would you do that? Like that, if I criticize you for it,
sure,
it's just the human reaction is just to like dig your heels in deeper and like further confirm why you should have done that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like anything, that's probably not the best way of building a healthy relationship around money. So if you approach it from, again, that point of like understanding and like what's going on and how do we tackle this, and we really do, if you've discussed your goals, if you've done all those things we already talked about, you've had the goals, you understand what we're trying to save for, like, you can probably approach this from a much more beneficial standpoint. Mm-hmm. And then oftentimes I'll see, this is really quite common, is one person will be kind of in the dark. So there'll be one person who manages finances, one person in the dark. The person in the dark is like really, for the true sense of the word and without the negative connotation, they're just ignorant to what's going on. And it makes it challenging, right? Again, if you don't know why you're saving or what your accounts are, or how much you save, or if you're just truly ignorant to all that, it's just really challenging. And so while I do think, again, creating those roles and responsibilities, it's okay to have one person sort of lead the financial charge, but it's probably worthwhile to still have those financial conversations mm-hmm. so that everybody's on the same page. And then again, it could trickle back and have one person be responsible for paying the bills or leading the savings initiatives for sure. But again, both parties should probably be kept in the loop, would be my thoughts.
I think that's important as well. And I always think about that because in my relationship, I handle more of the finances, but I always make sure that my wife has a pretty solid grasp on what's going on mm-hmm. because, as it's just good to be knowledgeable. Plus, as morbid as it sounds, if I was to pass away or something like that, at least having a general idea or your tools and resources to like go to if you have to end up maybe passing away, divorce, whatever you want to call it, like same thing. Being able to step in there and not be completely in the dark, and I think is incredibly important to be able to at least have some understanding for sure.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. One quick quick tip. Out of I think Ted Lasso. Did you see they just announced a 4th season?
I did see that. Yeah.
So he has an awesome quote in there that I love. It's the dart scene if you've seen it. But he's like talking about be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah.
Which I just think is a really cool quote. But so same thing. If you approach all these conversations like from a being curious standpoint and a not judgmental standpoint, I think like in summary, you'll be probably okay.
Absolutely. Plus, it's people are more apt to talk about things and open up if you're curious about them. If you like show interest, I've learned that just over the years. If you like, well, tell me about that. That's super interesting.
Sure.
Like people might be like, oh no, I do a boring job. I was like, well, what do you do? Like, and just to be able to get people to open up and talk about those things, if you show interest in whatever the topic is, finances, whatever it might be, very more likely to have them share and actually get to the root of what they have too. So I think that's a great quote. Like
he's got lots of good quotes.
Yeah, he does. That show's pretty good.
So it's kind of maybe to put a bow on it. So in line with what you were just talking about, like kind of showing that interest. So if you're listening and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I know I shouldn't avoid it, but it's hard to have that conversation, and sure, we should have regular check-ins and like, I know I should be honest and make it a conversation, not confrontational, but like, it's still hard to have that conversation, right? Maybe a good starting point, this would be a good question to ask your partner. What would financial peace of mind look like to you? So what would financial freedom look like to you? Anything like that. And so again, it's kind of approaching it from a point of like discovery and curiosity, and what does financial peace of mind look like to you? And again, it'd be curious to see what they say, right?
Absolutely.
And you'll probably learn a lot. And again, that might still help paint the picture of some of the decisions they're making and why they don't align with you. They're clearly aligning with. They're making decisions that make sense for them,
Definitely,
right?
Yeah.
So if you just get a better idea of like what makes sense for them, and they get a better idea of what makes sense for you, you can better start to understand each other.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. I appreciate it, man. That was really well broken down here, and just want to reiterate, we're not relationship advice people, but I think that there's some. Hopefully, you guys can take some of these things, talk with your partner, and just at least start the conversation. I think that's a.
We'll probably both be single by the time this thing airs.
Exactly. In that case, whoops. All right. We'll go ahead and take a pause here. Ryan will be right back on the other side. Everybody hang tight.
And now, to put the personal in personal finance.
Welcome back, everybody, to the personal side of the Fiscal Physical podcast. I am still here with Ryan. And Ryan, when I was writing up this question, I'm pretty sure I knew your answer already, but I think the listeners deserve to know, and I think it's always a fun one to get the juices flowing. But what is your go-to karaoke song if you had to go sing karaoke?
Yeah,
what would you say that would be?
I don't have to go sing karaoke, first of all. So I can't say I have a go-to karaoke song. I think I can count on one hand how many times I've done karaoke, and I could lose a few fingers. Still count on one hand. But that being said, this past summer I did do a karaoke.
Oh.
And I did it to The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Nice.
And so I suppose by default that has to become my karaoke song. Yeah. What about you? What's yours?
That's funny. I know that you love that. I was like, that's probably one of the songs like all the words to as well.
I know like 60% of the words. So more than any other song.
It is. I'm similar boat. I try to avoid karaoke with a passion. I've done it a few times, and normally when I've imbibed in a few beverages, and I think that I'm just crushing it.
Yeah.
And my buddy showed me a video one time of me singing, and I was like, oh my God. Like I should never do that again. This was like 5-6 years ago. I don't think I've ever done it since, because I was just like, nah, like that's no one needs to hear that. Like, But my go-to karaoke song is All Star by Smash Mouth.
Okay,
that's one of the few songs that I know. I know like 90% of the lyrics to that, which is unheard of for me. Like,
Yeah.
like I still on the daily basis hear songs or somebody talks about a song and I'm like, oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
And like, they're like, what? You've never heard that song? Like, I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Same.
So when I find a song like that I know kind of the rhythm and the lyric, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I could belt that one out.
Yeah.
Never
That's
turns
awesome.
out well, but
Yeah.
like, but
you did it.
I did it. Yeah. So I now, in the future, it's always good, I think, to have that in your back pocket about like, cool, you got this song. Plus, those are both pretty popular songs. Everybody's pretty much heard those or know.
I know.
Them, so
yeah, you probably need to find one of those. What some of those songs that just like everybody starts singing. You gotta grab one of those.
Journey,
Yeah.
like Don't Stop Believing. You'll always get people like. I think with The Devil Went Down to Georgia, you'll get some. In that too, but there's also like a lot of instrumental stuff in that one too.
Yeah.
So like,
when we did it, there was actually multiple. The like technology or whatever like could break it out by different like roles.
Oh, cool.
And so there were like 3 or 4 of us doing it. So like
Nice.
One was Johnny, one was the devil, one was whoever else is in that song.
Yeah. Narrator.
The narrator. I think that was one. So like I didn't even have to do the whole song. I was only doing like pieces of it. Yeah.
There you go, man. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing, Ryan. If anybody knows us, you probably know we're not super artistically inclined, but it's good to have options, experience new things, and appreciate the sharing, Ryan. And anything. Let me thank our listeners first. How rude of me. Appreciate everyone checking us out here. New pods drop every Tuesday. Please check us out wherever you get your podcasts at. Really appreciate the support. And Ryan, I'll leave you to play us out.
As always, stay the course.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening. And as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode. And consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.